On this week's episode of the Best of Johnson County podcast, we have a special edition episode that we call Ask Jonathan Breeden Anything. And on this episode, our social media coordinator, Raena Burch, and I discuss step parents, what rights they have, what rights they don't have, how they maybe can adopt a child, and what they can do if they think the other parents are unfit and acting contrary to their rights. We also talk about, do they have to pay child support, and answer many other questions about step parents and the rights they have and don't have under North Carolina law. So listen in.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Johnston County podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden, and on today's episode, we're having a special edition episode that we call Ask Jonathan Anything. And in this episode, our social media coordinator, Raena Burch, is going to talk to me or ask me, Jonathan Breeden, questions about step parents and their rights and maybe what rights they do have and what rights they don't have to their stepchildren and what they can do if the relationship with the parent ends. Anyway, but before we get to that, we'd like to ask you to like, follow, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you see it, whether on Apple, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Spotify, or any of the other social media channels of Best Johnson County Podcast. Best Johnson County Podcast comes out every single Monday and has now for right around 2 years. So go back and listen to some of our previous episodes. We've got a lot of great guests. Normally we have community members and community leaders and small business owners in Johnson County. And every once in a while we do these special edition episodes we call Ask Jonathan Anything. So go back and listen to some of the previous guests. Rick Hester, Johnson County Manager, Butch Slaughter, Johnson County Commissioner, Brad Knott, now Congressman Brad Knott, along with other small business owners, local dentist Tim Sims, local realtor Donald O'Meara, Everett Jones Investment Advisor Chris Key. These are just some of the many small business owners that have been on, and many of the community groups like the Miracle League of Johnson County, Backpack Buddies of Cleveland, Able to Serve, and many, many more. Isaiah 117 House, Hope Centers Ministries. They've all been on talking about the services they provide and the help they need from the community. Welcome, Raena.
All right, you're welcome. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Step parents is a pretty hot button topic.
Right. I've had about 45 seconds to think about my answer to this. So we'll see how it goes.
All right. So first question, what is a step parent? Like what constitutes a step parent? Long-term partner? Do they count as a step parent? Or no?
A step parent has to be married to the child's parent.
Got it.
To be considered a step parent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, under the law, the word step parent, I don't believe is in the statute. Okay. So, it is a accepted norm now with, a lot of divorces and people remarrying and stuff like that. But, being a step parent, I don't think the word step parent is in a statute that I'm aware of. But if you want to be called a step parent or whatever, you would be married to one of the child's parents,
Yeah.
And even if you're living with them, even though you're not called a step parent, you're acting as a parent to any child living in your home, as best you can, whether you're the step parent or not.
Yeah. Okay. So first question, because we need to establish that before we ask the rest of these questions.
Right.
All right. So one, what legal rights do step parents have when it comes to their stepchildren, and where do those rights end?
They really don't have any rights, at least initially,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they really don't have any rights at all, right? The step parent can be and often is added to the pick up and drop off list at school.
Yeah.
Is added to, depending on the situation, can take the child to the doctor and maybe consent to medical care if one parent has given them. So the parent can give the step parent some rights, like making some limited medical decisions as long as the other parent agrees, can allow them to pick up and drop off kids at school. The parent can bring the step parent to parent-teacher conferences at the school, stuff like that. Step parents coach little league teams all the time. That's up to the little league as to who the coach is going to be, stuff like that. Where they can actually get rights is if they were to decide they wanted to adopt their stepchild. And so if there were grounds to terminate the parental rights of the other parent. And those are, that's another episode. But basically, if the other parent has abandoned the child, nobody really knows where the other parent is. The other parent is in prison for some long period of time, isn't around, isn't able to provide support, has abused the child, abused the mom to a pretty severe level. Those are the types of things, or would consent to get out of paying child support.
That happens too.
Right. They do consent to get out of paying child support in particular, because once the child's adopted, the biological parent not only owes a ongoing doing of child support, they still owe the child support going back if they have arrears, and they almost always do. So that is how a step parent can get some rights, is they can adopt the child. Now, you do need to be married to this child's parent for 6 months in North Carolina prior to filing the petition for the adoption. That is one thing where a step parent, they're in the sort of adoption statute, is on the petition. It's called a step parent adoption. And so you can go like that. So that's one way to get rights. Another way a step parent can get rights is if they end up separating from the child's parent, and they believe that the child's parent that they were married to and the other parent are unfit or acting contrary to their rights. It's not that, I know people are going to think this is crazy. It's not that unusual for a parent to just leave the child with a step parent. And so, we see this all the time. Most of the time, the child's father in this situation has never met the child, and we might not even know who he is. The child's mom is in a long-term relationship with the step parent, but they got issues, whether it be drugs, alcohol, mental health, or whatever. And they realize that they're not going to be able to care for the child in wherever they're planning to go, or whatever's going to happen, or maybe they're getting locked up. That happens too. And they leave the child with the step parent. And so in that scenario, that step parent can file for custody of the child if it can show that both parents are unfit or acting contrary to their rights as parents and are unable to provide an immediate safe home for the child. And we've helped many, many step parents. At all times, we have at least one or two of those step parent cases in our office where we're representing a step parent getting custody of a step child. Oftentimes there are biological kids and there's step kids. And so where we're doing two separate cases where you got the biological kids, we're getting custody, and then we're going to try to get the step kids as well if the other parent is not well. And then we're always, at any given time, we always have one or two or three step parent adoptions that we're working on where we're going to help that step parent. And then when the adoption goes through, the step parent becomes the parent. They get a new birth certificate. The child is theirs for all legal purposes. They are just like the child was biologically theirs. And if the parties ultimately separate after that, it becomes a regular custody case, straight up best interest. You don't have to show unfitness. And, they would owe child support if they end up breaking up with the spouse, because it would be as if it's the child would inherit just like they would from a parent and all of that stuff.
All right. There's a lot of nuances with all of that, like you said, but ultimately it sounds like got to be married. Like you said, you have to wait 6 months for adoption. And once if you can adopt your stepchild, because those parents are still, they're parents. Like you said, if they're there and they're taking care of that child day in and day out and helping and all that, that's, they're doing a parent's job.
Right.
So, okay. How can bio parents and bonus parents, which is, set healthy boundaries to avoid conflict?
How can bio parents and
bonus parents, step parents,
with each other or with the opposing parent?
Either or, right?
Okay.
So it's like if you're a step parent and you set a boundary with your spouse, that's your child and your ex, and you need to handle that. And, do you think that's a healthy boundary? And then a healthy boundary with the co-parent, with the other parent.
Well, I would say that if at all humanly possible, the step parent should not be communicating with the other biological parent at all, right? Like, I think it should be the two parents of the child communicating. Now, I know that communication can often be not positive, negative, contentious, but I would rather see the parties use a website or an app like Our Family Wizard, which is a parenting app, that kind of stuff, and still have the parents communicating through the app, before I would like to see the step parent communicating with the other biological parent, because that often doesn't go well, and it's probably not in the best interest of the child.
Yeah.
And I understand the step parent needing to stand up and defend their spouse or girlfriend, particularly the other side's being
or
abusive.
Their house, their rules.
Right. Now, as far as step parents and their spouses are in their relationship and they're living together trying to raise the kids, that is extremely difficult. That is the hardest part of any second relationship there is. It is the number one cause, in my opinion, for second divorces.
Oh, really?
I really believe that. Thousands of divorces later, I'm telling you, I've had so many where the relationship deteriorated over how the parent was parenting the child and the step parent couldn't stand it. Whether it was largely enabling, a lot of enabling, where the step parent's like, we cannot enable these behaviors. Like they need to be disciplined, they need to be punished, they need to be put in their room, they need to have their phones taken away, they need to not be playing football. Like they have to learn. And the other parent, there's a lot of guilt. Right? There's a ton of guilt. Okay. And I've not gone through it. I mean, I've not gone through it, so it's easy for me to sit here and say, but there's a ton of guilt when there's been a separation or divorce, and the parents want to make the child happy and they want to do everything they can. And so I do think that often will weaken some natural boundaries they would have had. And then the step parent is often correct in the boundaries they're seeing it, because they're seeing it as a third party observer, right? And that parent doesn't want to hear it, doesn't want to listen to it. And that's the thing. And so I think it's very important for the parent and the step parent to try to get on the same page. And that needs to happen while you're dating. Like that needs to be
before you get married.
How are we going to deal with this? And if you're dating somebody and they have a child who is out of control, not being disciplined, you don't like the child, you don't like the behaviors, go get in a different relationship. Right? Like I'm just saying, I agree. Like it's not going to change because y'all get married, right? Like you have to consider that if you're going to marry somebody with a child, you're marrying both of them. The other mistake I see happen is the potential step parent falls in love with the child and mistakes that love for the parent. And they are not paying attention to, lying to themselves about the parent's behaviors and things they don't like about the parent because they're in love with the child. And then they end up marrying somebody that they shouldn't have married because of their love for the child. That probably happens a lot. Like I've seen that. And that's not bad, right? Children, I love children, you love children. But I'm saying you got to be real clear, when you're dating in these situations, that your relationship is with, and y'all agree on parenting and on the child. And most kids are good kids, but not all kids. You know what I'm saying? And because the other thing is, oftentimes those misbehaving children that are not being disciplined, that kind of don't listen and don't follow the rules, they also grow up to be adults that struggle as well. And so it's not like, okay,
it doesn't end when they're 18.
Right. When they're 18, we're going to be done with them, or like that's not how it goes. I mean, some crazy number I saw the other day, upwards of 50% of adults under 25 are living with their parents or something, or 26. It's some
they're moving back in with their parents after college.
Right. So that's the thing. I think about, some of my friends who were, many years ago were, dating women that had children or whatever, and they were thinking about it. And I remember having a conversation one time, and it was like talking to one of my other friends about it. I'm like, okay, what do we think about this new woman or whatever? And they were like, their opinion at the time was they liked the girlfriend better than he was swapping out children. He was like, I think he's gotten a better partner, but maybe the child doesn't behave as well. You know what I mean? Ultimately, kids grow up
Yep.
he's been married for 20 years, whatever. So, I mean, these things,
Yeah.
so you need to make sure that you're good with the partner
Mhm.
and that y'all are on the same page about how this parenting is going to
Yes.
go and what your role is going to be. And I don't think the step parent should be somebody that should be doing corporal discipline, should be really doing a lot of the discipline at all other than the immediate discipline. I really think it needs to be coming from the parent itself, because it's real easy for the other parent to then undermine the step parent to the child, which is and cause friction there, which they're going to love to do because it would upset the mom or the parent of the child. It's just one way to mess it up. So really, the discipline 99% needs to come from the parent itself. Y'all can talk about it, but you need to get on the same page. But the parent needs to be doing the discipline, not the step parent.
Yep. And, it's a fine line, right? Because you're helping to raise these kids, but there are certain things that it's just kind of crossing some boundaries and whatnot.
Right.
So,
Well, and if you're the parent, when you're looking to date or marry somebody, I can't even count the number of cases where I have won custody, often for a dad, against a mom, not because of the mom, but because of the step parent or the person that they are living with or whatever, being not a great person. They drink too much, they do drugs, there's domestic violence, there's all that kind of stuff, right? And the mom is a really good mom. I mean, we got tons of these cases at any given time. And I feel for these women because sometimes we're losing, and we probably should be losing based on the decisions they have made to bring these partners into their lives that are not positive, and they're not good for the kids, and they struggle to see it, and they're in love with the partner, and they're in love with the kid, and there's financial implications and everything else. But you got to be thinking about that too. I mean, there's been a lot of cases where the parent, because men too, like, stepmom's got problems.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like
I said, can't take a step back and stay in her lane, and that
right. Well, and while they're not parties to the action, they absolutely are going to be looked at very similarly to parents, because they're in the home parenting on a day-to-day basis. And what is their mental health? What is their ability to stay sober? What is their ability not to fly off the handle? What is their ability to deal with whatever mental health issues they have? This is all important. And so if you are choosing to have a relationship with these people, you need to be thinking, do I want this person as a key witness in a custody trial?
Yes.
How will they do if the other side's attorney starts attacking them? Mm-hmm. And that is a huge question. And if the answer is not well, date somebody else.
Yep. Just find somebody else.
Correct.
There's 7 billion people on the planet.
There's plenty of other people in the sea.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
All right, so are step parents legally responsible for child support or other financial obligations?
They are not if they don't adopt the child.
Okay.
And that's just what it is. They do not owe a obligation to the child if they are not the parent, if they're not the parent of the child. But I can tell you, and this is just life, if and when they separate, and if they've been married for a little while, and the step parent is a supporting spouse, which means they make substantially more money than the other spouse, and the other spouse is defined as dependent, which means they need money from the supporting spouse to meet their reasonable needs. Those needs of that child, there's no way to separate that child's needs from the parent's needs. Mm-hmm. And so that is going to drive up the needs of the dependent spouse, I do believe, for alimony.
Okay.
And the judge is not going to say, okay, we're going to make it, but I'm just telling you, that's how it works. Yeah. But now child support does count as income to that dependent spouse. So that dependent spouse has to they get their salary plus their child support before the court determines their shortfall as to whether the supporting spouse has to give them money.
Got it. All right. So, but like the step parents, like their salary when they're married to the parent doesn't factor into child support.
It does not.
At least in North Carolina.
Right. Unless somebody files for a deviation, and that's very rare, but yes, it doesn't factor in.
Got it. So what happens if the parent who owes child support loses their job? Then that's just a modification of child support. The step parent's salary doesn't come in, even though.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All
Right.
right.
Yeah. Right. Because they don't have an obligation.
They don't have an
to support
obligation.
the child. They don't support unless they adopt the child.
Yep. All right. So can a custody order be updated to include the step parents?
As a general rule, the step parents are not referenced in custody orders.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, when they're entered, they're there. I mean, step parents come and go.
Yep. Yeah.
The parents don't, as a general rule. Now, sometimes parent may leave, but they're not parties to the action. The action is going to be mom versus dad or dad versus mom.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. So now, of course, we talked about earlier, step parents can't bring custody actions if the parents are unfit and they're acting contrary to their rights, and the step parent is acted in loco parentis as a parent to the child. But any third party can do that. Step parent, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, neighbors, cousins. Right. If you're out there and you know children whose parents are unfit and they're acting contrary to their rights as a parent, you can file for custody of that child.
Yep. So
I think that's important. What was the question?
Just, can you put a parent in a custody order?
As a general rule, no. When you do see them in there, it's usually in a negative connotation, meaning this person should not be around the child. This person should not be at exchanges because there's been violence between step parent and parent, and the court wants to avoid that. Sometimes in truly high conflict cases, you'll have to list in people who can and cannot pick up the children from school or daycare or stuff like that. Sometimes you got to get into that. You'll see the step parent in there. But oftentimes, if you start seeing boyfriends and step parents in orders, it's not for the positive.
Yeah.
It is for the negative. And look, I've had many cases where the court has said the step parent can have no contact with the child.
Oh.
Then what do you do?
Right.
If you're the parent, right?
Now you got to make choice.
Right. And they sometimes the step parent will go stay at a friend's house when the parent has custody of the child, or the parent will take the child to their parents' house or whatever. But that does happen. Yeah. Like I said, the court doesn't tell you have to break up. But if the court believes step parent or new boyfriend or girlfriend is bad for this child, they absolutely can put a no contact order in. And we see it happen all the time.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. All right. So last question. What advice would you give to blended families? So, they're trying to co-parent, they're trying to work together and all of that, who want to avoid legal complications and create just a smoother parenting process.
Communication and forgiveness and
compassion.
Realizing that you're not going to get everything that you want, right? So I think it all starts with communication. I think, and the communication needs to be as positive and clear and without emotion as possible.
Preferably in writing.
In writing, in a high conflict case, and I would highly recommend Our Family Wizard as a parenting app where nothing can be deleted, nothing can be edited. It says when it's posted, it said when it's read, calendars and schedules and doctor's appointments and receipts and all of that can be put in there.
Yep. And it's all admissible in court.
It's all admissible in court.
Yep.
But I would say that there be communication. I think there need, and I've talked about this on other podcasts, respect for the other parents' family and traditions, even if you dislike them. If his grandmama has Christmas lunch or whatever, like if that's their thing, try to make it possible for the child to participate as much as possible, that kind of stuff. Try to see it from both sides. Don't just be looking at it as what I can get and what they can get over on me and get your feelings hurt. Like it really is what's best for the child. And everybody just try to get along, right? Like the relationship's over. Fighting about bygones and being jealous that the relationship's over. It's over. Like it's over. Like let's move on, right? The child now has
3 parents,
or four, 2 step parents, and in the child's world, the child would have its parents together. In all scenarios, all children wish for their parents to be together. They just do. And so to see them fighting and at each other, it just stabs the kid in the heart, right? And so what I'm saying is there's got to be communication. There's got to be give and take. Even if the other side doesn't give, you've got to give some.
Yeah.
And, try to be nice to everybody, right? Like, and this is with anybody that may dislike you or not like you. I mean, there's people that don't like Jonathan Breeden in this world. I'm sure there's people that don't like Raena Burch. I can't imagine,
absolutely.
but I'm sure somebody does, And so what you want to do in that scenario when you're dealing with somebody in life or whatever doesn't like you is just be kind, be nice, act like nothing is wrong, treat them with respect, answer their questions, look at them when you talk to them, don't add in smart ass comments. Don't be passive aggressive, sort of be to the point, that kind of stuff. Like that's what we need more of, because nobody is going to win whatever argument you might be having or still having or whatever. The only person that loses is the kid. And so that's what I would tell people to do is communicate, give and take, have compassion for the other side. Realize the other side misses the child as much as you miss the child when the child's not there. Realize that the other side's family is just as much the child's family as your family. And those relationships are just as important to that child as the relationships with your family are important. I think people lose track of that. They just sort of think it's me, 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 me. And unfortunately, society teaches a lot of that. But that's not what it is. Like this child only gets one life and he gets one set of parents. And so everybody needs to try to get along.
Yeah. And I will say that, when you start adding in step parents and whatnot, you also add in that step parents' families. Like not just the step parent, it's their families too. Their families also have their own traditions. And if that step parent loves your child like their own, hopefully as they, I think should, when they're treating their kid as if it was their own in their own house, then you would hope that they'd want to share their family and their family traditions with your child as well, because of course they do.
Right.
And to just keep that in mind if they want to, include, they want to include your child in their family. That's not a bad thing.
Right. No doubt. No doubt. Well, anyway, so I'd like to thank Raena for coming on and helping us with this edition of the Best of Johnson County podcast. I asked Jonathan Breeden anything, where we talked about step parents' rights or lack of rights. If you have questions about your relationship with your stepchildren, or you're in a relationship that might not be working out with a step parent, give us a call here at the Breeden Law Office at 919-661-4970, or reach out to us at breedenfirm.com. We'll be glad to sit down and talk to you about your unique situation. As always, please like, follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you're seeing it, whether it be on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, or any other social media channels. The Best Johnson County Podcast. Best Johnson County Podcast comes out every single Monday now and has for almost 2 years. So please keep listening in for future episodes where we interview community leaders and do a lot of these special editions where I, Jonathan Breeden, talk about varying family law topics we deal with every day at the Breeden Law Office. Until next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.